It's been a while since we've done a bumper feedback episode, so we've gathered your feedback from the last little while and we're going to have a bit of a chat about it. So here we go. If you'd like to get in touch about any past or future episodes, our feedback form is now live again at linuxmatters.sh/contact. We did have to take this down for a while because we were getting spammed quite relentlessly, but inspired by Alan's newsletter, we've now sorted that out.
Yes, we have. We have double bagged the spam protection. So I think a little while ago, Alan talked about using the Cloudflare sort of prove you're a human button or something on your newsletter.
That's right. Instead of Capture or Hcatcher or whatever the thing everyone else is using, I'm using Cloudflare now.
I'm not even going to pretend to understand how that technology works, but we're using that on our feedback form. And I think that that's helped a great deal. But I also added good old-fashioned honeypot protection as well for those script kiddies that haven't upgraded to the new cool stuff. So I've embedded a for not humans tick box in the feedback form, which is win a free Amazon coupon. And if anything ticks that box, we know for sure it was not a person, it was a bot.
We're in danger of revealing this too much information to the bots that listen to the show or read the transcript of the show and then formulate a better solution for sending us stuff we don't need. I don't know. We'll find out.
Both techniques are working. Both techniques are stopping the spam. We're only getting legit feedback now. So please, if you hear anything in future episodes and you want to share your feedback, go to linuxmatters.sh/contact and send it to us, either via email or the contact form, which now works.
Mark Crutch emailed, I just listened to your discussion of the Evercade, including the various form factors available. One that you missed is the HyperMegaTech Super Pocket family of devices. They're similar in form factor to the original Game Boy. Each one comes with a number of built-in games which vary by model, but they also work with Evercade carts. Is that the genuine name for the thing?
Yes. Well, the Super Pocket is the name of the product. HyperMegaTech is the brand, which is like a sister brand of Evercade.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so you can get these. You get various editions which are with a collection of games by that edition's company. So there's a Taito one, there's a Atari one, etc. I think. And then they also have a slot in the back where you'd normally have for Game Boy carts, except it's for Evercade carts. So they're a bit smaller than the Evercade that I got in terms of the screen size, but they're more like a sort of Game Boy Color kind of size and with the screen above the buttons rather than in the middle.
Just a minor point. Is it Taito or Taito?
Oh.
Because you
I've always been saying Taito.
You immediately reminded me.
Have I been eating too many crisps?
Yes, I think you've reminded me of all my Irish friends who talk about Taitos.
Yeah, I hope that name is also sort of ironic, deliberately ironic.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Also, Jaden Blackman emailed, have you guys seen Kazeta? Kazeta? It's made by the guy who made Chimera OS, and Jaden gave us a link, which I'll stick in the show notes.
So I hadn't seen or heard about this until the feedback came in. Now, I should point out that I have been a happy user of Chimera OS since 2021. That original install is still going strong. It is still our games console machine. So when I saw this, I hurried on over to take a look, and it's got all of the same sort of well thought out design principles and objectives that I love about Chimera OS, but really for a retro gaming experience, trying to recreate through emulation that feeling of plugging a cartridge in and a game running. It's rather lovely.
What they've done is basically make a system where rather than having a online store, you write your games to an SD card and then you plug in the SD card and it plays the game, basically.
Yeah, right.
So rather than buying carts like you do with the Evercade, you have whatever game library you've got. And I don't think it's restricted to retro games, is it? You can actually have any kind of game which will run without some kind of other launcher or whatever.
It's designed to have that immediacy of, this is a thing with my game on it. I shove it in a computer thingy and computer thingy makes game work.
Yeah. Yeah, I did note that it does say on the website zero setup, which zero setup aside from installing the OS and having a bunch of SD cards and getting the ROMs or whatever and writing the SD cards and making sure it all works. But once you've done that, it's zero setup.
So Nomad emailed and they said they were listening to episode 63 when Popey was talking about using AI to write a recipe app. And they say that several years ago they were looking for a program to record their recipes but couldn't find one. But they've now decided to write their own that would format the recipes the way they like and save them as text files that can be easily used to share outside of the program. They finally picked Flatpak as a quick install for their systems, and they wanted to show us the project. They go on to say that they really wrote it for their son to use, and aside from the anonymous installs from FlatHub, they've never actually shared it with anyone else, and the program is called Recipe Scribe. And as I understand it, what they were inspired by was using AI to help create the Flatpak package.
Interesting. So the thing that I find interesting there's two things. One is that, it's not just me. Other people are using this stuff as well. And other people see a need for a way to store all their recipes somewhere. And their user interface is, I think what I would say is brutally simple. And I mean, it's a list of recipes and you search and you find the recipe and it's the minimum viable recipe product, I think. And I can see why people use things like AI to do the packaging, because that can sometimes be the hardest bit. I find when I've created something, then having to do all the different packaging types, which is a lot of extra stuff to do on top of just creating the thing in the first place, is kind of onerous sometimes. And I can see why some people just pick one and only deploy their thing in one place. And this application packaged up and put in the FlatHub is, it looks like a good way to stick text files in a thing and enable search. Well done.
Yeah, I saw some commentary recently where there are some not really developers, so your clan, Alan, not really developers who are talking about, I know, sorry, who are talking about cancelling their subscriptions for services that they only half use, but with the assistance of AI, creating just enough of those services that they can self-host in order to build just enough application to service their needs, rather than the ongoing subscription costs to whatever service they were using previously. And there seems to be a growing community of people that are starting to do that for themselves. So beyond packaging, actually making the apps.
Yeah. Also, the whole packaging thing has made me realize why a lot of people just build web apps and don't bother packaging stuff up as desktop apps, but you just go to this URL and you'll see my thing. And that seems to work as well.
So Stan emailed and they said that they make a project called FossFLOW on GitHub. And they say it was kind of thrown together in an afternoon and suddenly had lots of people wanting to add internationalization support to it. And after a community member made the Mandarin translation, they have thrown together translations using Claude for Spanish, Hindi, Brazilian Portuguese, and Bengali. And they say that, now, do I know that these translations are correct? No. However, it does now mean more people can use the tool. And I've thrown all of it at Google Translate, and it does seem to be a straight translation. And they give us a link to the project, which we'll share.
Now, this is also interesting to me because I recently made a thing that I don't think I've talked about on the show yet, but I will later. But you can go and find it. It's called Gitafix, GITAFIX.com. And the idea is it's Tinder for GitHub, so you can swipe left and right and find issues, not
hot
people.
Single developers in your area.
Hot single issues in your area. And that's a great subline. I should use that. And you just swipe left and right to find issues that you might want to work on, like good first issues that you might want to discover projects that you've never heard before. Anyway, the point I wanted to get to is the translation part is something that I also wanted to do. And I was concerned that I don't know all of these languages. And I thought, well, I wonder if, I could use a tool to do that, an AI tool. And so I did. And then I got a second one to double check them from another manufacturer, another developer. And then I threw it at a couple of people, and they said, other than a couple of nitpicks, no, it's fine. I understand what it's saying, and it works. And I did the same. I added the 2 versions of Chinese, Brazilian, Portuguese, a few European languages, Korean, Japanese, and some others. And it just seemed wild to me that I could enable those people in those languages. Now, the benefit I have is there's very few pieces of text in the UI. It's mostly text that's pulled from GitHub, which I didn't write. But yes, there is, as Stan said, the worry that I don't know if this is right or not, and probably I should put these in the repo and then have people review them and tell me if they're wrong and correct them.
Yeah, this did actually make me think of something that I was reading today, which is one of the examples from the curl project, which gets shared quite a lot of their bug bounty submissions, which they get a lot of people just doing blind submissions generated with LLMs, which aren't finding real issues. And the problem that had happened in this case was the person didn't have English as a first language and had their LLM translate the docs for a function, and it had added a not to say that something should not return from or some bounds checking should not be done by the API. And they looked in the code and said it was. So therefore that was a problem. But then it was pointed out, if they read the docs in English, it actually does say that it explicitly is. So yeah, definitely a useful tool, but also definitely necessary to check it.
Yes. I've found some utility in locally hosted LLMs for language tuition. I'm a perennial not actually getting much better Spanish learner, have been for decades. It's one of these things I really wish I could apply myself to. But I have made a Spanish tutor using a locally hosted LLM, because some of these models can converse in like 27 different languages. And I have found that quite good, particularly when you use like the microphone input thing, where it sort of asks you to, repeat a phrase or create a phrase, translate a phrase in English to Spanish or whatever. They are remarkably good at that. But yes, I do sometimes wonder if I'm actually as good as it assures me I am.
I'm hoping I haven't got anything wildly offensive in the UI, but like I said, I did run it past a second party, but who knows? I guess put stuff on GitHub and WebLate and all the usual translation tools and let the community figure it out.
Charlotte McGraw emailed, "You've referenced the A to Z of modern Unix," by you I assume she's referring to Martin, "when referring to all the different TUI apps you found. When I searched it up, I expected to find something that had all those tools listed. I've been able to find no such thing, however. Is there such an actual list, or is it just a Martinism for those tools that you've found?"
This whole podcast is a Martinism.
Yes, I suppose it is. So, yes, the podcast has become my outlet for sharing these things. But the A to Z of modern Unix, I did start writing a book titled The A to Z of Modern Unix, subheading Terminal Velocity, where I was sort of cataloguing each of these and also then giving an honourable mention to the other tools that were sort of, competent and good, that were not my top pick. But it was a lot of work, and I did get some help from a few people. I did start putting it together, but I suppose this podcast is the vehicle by which I like to share those things, and I'm keeping it here. However, we have a GitHub. So I will do this. I will create an empty repository on github.com/Linux Matters, and I will put one entry in there correctly formulated. And if the community of listeners want to find the things that we've talked about that fit that category and help collate them and curate that list, that would be fabulous.
What a great idea. On the subject of Bookshelf Buddy that Marcus talks about a fair bit, Nicholas emailed, "Not sure if you're aware of this, but the Toniebox is hacked with a self-hosted cloud called Teddy Cloud," with a link to a GitHub org called Toniebox Reverse Engineering.
Yeah, so this was actually quite interesting. So Tony isn't the box that I've got. I've got the Yoto, but it's very comparable device. So yeah, there's actually a whole thing about reverse engineering and being able to point it at your own server for hosting books, which is interesting to see that's been possible with the Tony, at least. I have actually now opened up a Yoto because my daughter's first one died and we got a newer one. So I've opened it up and tried to poke around a bit at it and see if there's anything internal that I can connect to, but I haven't actually got right into the guts of it yet because I've been busy with other things. But yeah, it's interesting to see that it's certainly possible with the Tony, at least.
I saw one of those devices for the first time when I went Christmas shopping at the end of last year, and I now get it. And I can see I hadn't actually seen any of these things before, but they look rather cute, and I can see why they're quite appealing. So yeah, good luck putting it back together again. Jonas Luegas emailed, listening to the bit about family-friendly music and audiobook player reminded me of a similar project that I'd seen before. Unfortunately, it's all in German and also possibly dead, but maybe it still might provide some inspiration. I think it's called Tonuino, yeah.
Tonuino. I think this is a Arduino-based re-implementation of a Tony player. So someone has done it themselves from scratch, kind of thing. So I'm not the only person thinking about this, is what's happening here.
Andy Taylor also emailed, did you know the Yoto has an ESP32 inside? When ours connects to the Wi-Fi, it advertises itself as an expressive something, and you can tell that it's definitely an ESP device.
So yeah, I think I mentioned that, if I was building this, it might, rather than prototyping it with Raspberry Pis, which I'm doing, if I was actually building something proper, then an ESP32 might be a good thing to build it around if I understood that sort of thing, which I don't really. But yeah, it's interesting to find out that actually all of the capabilities I'd be after are already implemented in an ESP32 device.
It's interesting because when you say, like, if I understood, do you mean like if you understood like the programming language used to talk to the thing, or the architecture, or it's like anything at all about ESP32s that you don't know?
Basically, like, I understand with the Raspberry Pi, you have basically a normal computer which you can have an operating system and run stuff on, whereas ESP32 is a lot more embedded and you have like something that executes when it powers up. I have been playing around as part of my prototyping with a display which is using a Pi Pico. So that's a similar kind of microcontroller board. And yeah, understanding what the sort of the life cycle of the execution of code on that is and how that compares is kind of, it's been a big learning curve for me to get my head around how it's different, and how trying to, you can't just have it, you can't just change the code that's on there easily while it's running, sort of, with it. You have to flash things or restart things. And yeah, it's been different. I'm getting my head around things a bit more, but it's not something I'd be comfortable starting a project on, certainly.
The reason I ask is I was recently introduced to a project that might be of interest on that topic called Yarg. It's a new programming language. Yes, it is named after the cheese. It's called Yarg-lang. You'll find it on GitHub, and it's designed to be make it easier for people to write projects for things like the Raspberry Pi Pico for exactly that device.
Okay.
Especially where if you were to choose Python, which might be the usual thing you would go to, you might not have all the necessary libraries, and you get a little bit confused with all the different bits and pieces of. Yeah, exactly. And so this tries to take that problem away and also make it so that it's more power efficient as well, because you're not using all the heavyweight stuff that comes along with Python.
Oh, cool.
But it isn't like so far down the other end of the line that it's C or C++. It's somewhere like designed to be somewhere in the middle. It's quite embryonic and quite early on. And it was started by ex-co-worker of mine at Canonical, John McAlealy, who is a lovely, lovely person, lives in the UK, and is very keen to see success with this. So if anyone wants to have a go and is thinking similar things as you, Mark, then I'd strongly recommend having a look at Yarg-lang. Nice. I'll put a link in the show notes. Finally, on the Bookshelf Buddy topic, Par Moberg has said that they have a suggestion for the Bookshelf Buddy. As an alternative to NFC cards, they suggest cards with barcodes on them so the camera can read them.
This, I thought, was a really interesting idea. So I had a bit of a think and a play around. And the trouble with that is that if the device is going to be a box that you put the card into, you then need a camera and a light inside the box that can see and focus on at quite a short distance the barcode. And with the bits I've got and I'm willing to buy to try it out, I couldn't see I would get that to work. You don't want it in the middle of the night, your daughter puts the card in the top and there's a big flash inside the box waking her up or something like that.
I wonder if there's a way that as the card is put in, there's a button at the bottom, and so only when you push the card all the way to the bottom, that button just turns on an LED, which is enough light to illuminate the enclosed area where a barcode would be. It might be possible. Yeah.
Or you could have like an actual sort of barcode reader with like a single line that it passes through. Sure, that would work. But with the box of bits that I've got, it's not something feasible for me to work out, unfortunately. But it's a nice idea. I like the idea a lot.
I absolutely think that if you add the barcode reader, it needs to say, unexpected book in the booking area.
This also sounds like a delightful nerd snipe to me as well, because Mark is thinking about it now. And with that, we've got a few events. So the following community-run events are coming up, which you might want to check out if they're in your part of the world. And the first is Scale, which is the Southern Californian Linux Expo, which is happening in Pasadena, California, USA, between March the 5th and the 8th of 2026. And I was lucky enough to go to Scale for my first time ever in 2024, and I had a brilliant time. So if you're in the area or you can make it to that part of the world, I highly recommend you make the trip.
Yeah, I've been to Scale once or twice. It's great. It's a nice area, and there's lots of familiar faces will be there, no doubt.
And following Scale, we have OggCamp 2026 happening from April the 25th to the 26th in Manchester, the United Kingdom. So I'm assuming this is the Manchester Pendulum Hotel again. Is that the right name?
I believe so.
The same place it was before.
Right. It has been for several OggCamps. So it has been delayed a little bit, but it is now happening in April 25th to 26th. So hopefully we'll get to see you there.
It's got a new logo and everything, which means it must be happening. And there's 2026 in the logo, so it's got to be happening.
And finally, several people got in touch with us to let us know about issues with the audio levels on some of our recent episodes, in particular that they were too low. We had a few teething troubles with our new audio production pipeline, which we think we've got all sorted now. So hopefully everything should be good from now on. We'll probably talk a bit more about that in an upcoming episode. And if you'd like to get in touch about any episodes past or future, you can find all of the details at linuxmatters.sh/contact.